Hi everybody, this is Angel Arts, and we are still playing more Gay Let's Play Mass Effect Andromeda. This video is going to be the second Codex video, so if you're not interested in Codexes, feel free to skip this one and move on to the next one. But I personally have been finding out some really awesome information that I would not have known otherwise, which I think adds to the experience by reading these codexes. So I definitely find a lot of value to them, but I totally get it if you would prefer to just skip over, especially if you already own the game and play the game yourself and you can just read these codexes on your own. But I'm going to go ahead and read up the new stuff that we have so far. The journey so far. The Helios cluster is nothing like the initiative expected. The Pathfinder faces terrible dangers and unimaginable wonders in the search for a place to call home. Crisis on Habitat 7. During your trial by fire on Habitat 7, you tried to initiate peaceful contact with the Kett despite their hostility, found a cave full of plant life that survived the Golden World Hour, discovered alien aircraft of unknown origin, rescued Greer from his captors, expressed doubts about accepting the role of Pathfinder. Eos, the first outpost. You explored and reactivated a mysterious alien vault apparently designed for terraforming, bringing the hope of new life back to Eos. Despite the potential Kett threat, you guided the outpost on Eos on a mission of peaceful, scientific exploration of the Helios cluster. A crew like no other. Only the best and most experienced crew can hope to succeed on the Pathfinder's missions. The allies and companions ensure survival for thousands of settlers. Nakmor Drak. After earning Nakmor Drak's respect on Eos, he agreed to join your squad. The Tempest is a little cozy for a Krogan, but the old-timers made himself comfortable. When not regaling the crew with stories, he hangs out in the galley, tinkering with his guns. Drak was one of many Krogan woken from stasis to help put down a mutiny on the Nexus. When the Krogan weren't given the authority they were promised, his people left to settle Helios their own way. Drak's granddaughter, Kesh, stayed on the Nexus. He might say she's keeping him honest. Cora Harper. You socialized a little with Cora, learning more about her background as a biotic and Asari commando. Callow Jath. You and Callow sometimes chat in your free time. Callow will take any excuse to talk about the Tempest. It seems that Callow and Gil Brody don't get along. Callow doesn't seem inclined to discuss. Liam Costa. First impressions of Liam? He's a real booster for the initiative and always gives his all for the mission. He's like our Boy Scout, kind of. Lexi Tapero. Despite her years of experience, Lexi feels a little daunted by working in the field. However, she is excited about the prospect of researching the Kett. PB Basale. PB mostly keeps out of the way, she's guarded about herself, and you're respecting her space. The handsome Gil Brody. You've left Gil to his job taking care of the Tempest systems, which seems to keep him busy. Suvi Anwar. Suvi Anwar is the Tempest resident science officer. She works closely with the research team on the Nexus, analyzing the data you and Sam collect in the field. While chatting, Suvi revealed herself to be a spiritual person. You expressed your own similar feelings on the matter. Suvi appreciated finding someone of like mind. Very cool. I love that these codexes are keeping track of all of this new stuff as you talk to them. Ryder. Ongoing psychological profile, Pathfinder Ryder. From the files of Tempest physician and psychologist Dr. Lexi Tapero. Ryder, as part of my assignment on the Tempest, I'm required to send a psychological assessment to Pathfinder HQ. I'm sending you my notes. After all, you should know what I'm telling them. I've only known you a short time, and so this is just my initial intake. Enjoy. Shows high levels of empathy and expresses passionate opinions. Maintains poise and discipline even under intense pressure. I'll be required to update them and send in more depth later. That's pretty cool that she's sort of taking... I think this is like a summation of my dialogue choices, the tone of my dialogue choices, casual, professional, emotional, logical, and that's pretty neat. Though you mourn, yeah, the ties that bind. We'll probably fill that in more later. The Andromeda Initiative. The initiative was built by the efforts of thousands who devoted years of time and countless resources to reach the Andromeda Galaxy. These are the people, places, and organizations that make the Pathfinder's mission possible. PB. PB describes herself freely as the foremost Milky Way expert on the Remnant and their technology. It is difficult to verify her qualifications in this, as many Nexus personnel records have been lost. DNA and fingerprint matches give the name Pelisaria Bisail. So PB is her initials. Pelisaria Bisail. Although according to the revival schedule, that individual should still be in stasis. Well, she said she was woken up early, so PB's only comment is, nothing like getting a head start. Piecing together information from Eos and the Nexus, PB was born on the planet Hyatiana in the Milky Way. After voyaging to Andromeda on the Nexus, she left the station some months ago to explore the Helios cluster alone and became fascinated by the Remnant. She has classified and dismantled several types of Remnant but she prefers to keep her findings private for now. Psychologically, PB demonstrates both extremely high intelligence and hyper-individualism. Her restlessness is typical of many Asari in her maiden phase of life, though few go so far as to visit another galaxy. Kalo Jaff was born on Surkesh and, quoting directly, into a life so boring even you couldn't calculate it. Pushed towards a lucrative but dull bureaucratic career with Parohi Aerospace, Kalo became more interested in flying the starships he was meant to be cataloging. He eventually left Surkesh for formal pilot training and joined Parohi's competitor as a test pilot. Ooh, their competitor. Internal emails show that when the Andromeda Initiative was building teams to develop their survey vessels, Parohi Aerospace warned against recruiting Kalo, so fervently that Gene Garson's interest was piqued. Kalo claims that the prospect of the initiative was intriguing enough to make him join the Tempest design team, test fly her early prototypes, running stress tests in regions like the Nemean Abyss, and rumor has it helping to acquire advanced technology. Kalo has an acute photographic memory, even by Salarian standards. This may be linked to his unusual motor responses, though he discourages my speculation. Vetra Nix. The Andromeda Initiative's records on Vetra Nix are sparse. She states that she is from Palavin, but she has also disclosed that she is not recognized as a formal citizen of Turian society. Never having entered boot camp, it appears she left Palavin at an early age, and spent most of her life in the outer reaches of Council space, never settling down in one place. Vetra was recruited into the initiative by Nakmor Kesh, who lists her as a business associate and recommended her on the basis of her street smarts, adaptability, and familiarity with most weapons. Vetra's only other recorded family is her sister, Sidera Nix, who accompanied Vetra on the journey to Andromeda on board the Nexus. Gil Brody. Technical Officer Gil Brody is chief engineer aboard the Tempest. After traveling to Andromeda aboard the Nexus, records show that Gil was awoken from stasis roughly a year ago. Oh! Gil's been awake for about a year, to assist with construction efforts before prepping the Tempest itself. There are no records of Gil's early life. Ooh, mysterious backstory. He explains he was an undocumented street kid from one of Earth's megapolis cities. That's just like my Clive Shepard was, I believe. Yeah, that's just like him. Though unschooled, Gil likely showed a remarkable aptitude for mathematics and spatial reasoning since at 10. He often broke into local scrapyards to dismantle and repair destroyed shuttle engines. In time, he was caught and sentenced to a steady job. I love that. Gil's mechanical expertise eventually drew him off-world to numerous colonies across the Milky Way. His unconventional work drew the attention of Vetra Nix, who agrees she was always on the lookout for new contacts. Vetra claims she persuaded Gil to join the initiative. Gil claims he won Vetra's initiative clearance in a poker game and exchanged it for a guaranteed seat along with his friend Jill. Ooh, I want to know about Jill more. He remains an invaluable member of the Tempest crew. I'm sure he is. Lexi Tapero. Although young by Asari standards, Lexi Tapero is regarded as one of the most skilled doctors in the Andromeda Initiative. Born on the crime-ridden space station Omega, Lexi began her medical career by stitching up her father, a Turian bouncer, at the Afterlife nightclub where her mother was employed as a dancer. In her screening interviews, Lexi states her parents' dream was for her to get off this rock and live a life worth talking about. Following her parents' wishes, Lexi left Omega to continue studying medicine as well as psychology on the Citadel, where she eventually met Harry Carlisle. See, who would have thought that somebody who was born into a place like Omega would end up being such a refined doctor like her? That's pretty cool success story. Carlisle convinced her to join the initiatives as the Hyperion's physician, although there was some confusion around assigning an Asari to the human arc. Lexi's credentials and expertise in alien anatomy quickly silenced any concerns. By her own admission, Lexi is a workaholic. On or off the table, I have a hard time not dissecting people. Figuratively, of course. One of her many goals in Helios is to improve her bedside manner and learn to appreciate the moment. Nakmor Drak. As verified by Nexus records and his own claims, the Krogan mercenary Nakmor Drak is among the oldest beings to join the Andromeda Initiative. He originally traveled on the Nexus along with many other members of Clan Nakmor, but left after the Nexus uprising. Born on Tuchanka around 700 CE, Drak was a young warrior when the Krogan rebellions began in earnest. He and his Krant accounted for over 200 kills, which, Drak claims, includes 3 of the then newly founded Council Spectres. Well, that is kind of impressive. After the Salarian-designed genophage ended the rebellions, various bounties and military bulletins show Drak chose a new path as a pirate and soldier of fortune for whatever conflicts came his way. Wow. Over centuries of fighting, multiple injuries required several of his limbs and organs to be replaced with cybernetics. Wow, that was awesome. Eventually, Drak says his search for one last horizon brought him to Andromeda. Drak did not travel alone. He accompanied most of his clan to Andromeda, including granddaughter Nakmor Kesh and clan leader Nakmor Morda. Kesh and Drak maintain a close relationship, exchanging regular messages, no matter where their duties on Helios take them. Sarah Ryder. You'll warn your elder twin. Yeah, I think I already read this. She often described the thrill serving silently mates on the brink of next great discovery. Well, I'll read it again. Born your elder twin on the Citadel space station in 2163, Sarah grew up surrounded by a multitude of alien species, cultures, and histories. In her orientation interviews, she claims this sparked her fascination with science. With informal training aided by Alec Ryder's N7 background, Sarah joined the Systems Alliance military, which was continuing its search for Prothean technology after successful discovery on Mars. Initially assigned to peacekeeping duties, Sarah was approached to serve as a support role for these Prothean researchers. She often describes the thrill of serving with scientists like Matthias Silva on the brink of the next great discovery. When Alec Ryder was dishonorably discharged due to his AI research, internal memos show that this also effectively ended Sarah's career, but Andromeda presented this kind of scientific frontier she had sought all her life. On arrival in Andromeda, Sarah's cryopod was damaged and her revival process interrupted. Dr. Lexi Tapero advised keeping her in a medically induced coma to allow her to awaken naturally. I think all of these are done. Okay. The Initiative. The Andromeda Initiative Nexus Uprising. Despite Director Tan's reluctance to share the Nexus retainers records of the so-called Nexus Uprising, in the early months of the station's arrival, the damage caused by the Scourge killed members of the senior leadership. New individuals had to step in to fill these roles. However, with hydroponics damage and no habitable planets available, supplies were stretched to crisis point. Dissent turned to open rebellion against this new leadership. With the Nexus threatened, Krogan war crews were asked to provide military support against the rebels, now led by Head of Security Sloan Kelly, in return for political representation. The Krogan were ultimately successful, and the rebels were exiled from the Nexus. These exiles remain a concern for the Nexus leadership to this day. The majority of Krogan personnel also left the Nexus soon afterwards. Director Tan has declined to provide details or fill in gaps in the official record. Jean Garson. So I think I read a lot about Jean Garson already. Unfortunately, Jean would never live to see her dream realized. She died aboard the Nexus when it sustained severe damage from the Scourge upon first arriving in the Helios cluster. Did I read Militia and Apex? I don't know if I read this already. Though encountering hostile species was a possible scenario, political, philosophical, and resource restraints in the Milky Way mean the Andromeda Initiative does not have a standing army and only minimal military hardware. Defense was planned to revolve around technological superiority. The Kett, however, represents a greater threat than anyone projected. So that does explain why they're not as militarily trained. The Nexus militia was formed by Turian Kandros after he was captured by the Kett and led other prisoners in an escape. Debriefs show that upon their return to the Nexus, Kandros and his team provided the first early warnings about the Kett and, despite counter-arguments, founded and armed a volunteer militia. Today, enrollment lists show over 300 active members with 150 in reserve, from a variety of combat backgrounds. Kandros describes Apex as the militia's long reach, selected for exemplary combat skills and experience. Apex forces are small, but elite teams that handle special operations. Most Apex members have rescinded their colonist status to focus on defense. The Nexus. I think I already read all of this one. Turian Kandros. In his screening interviews, Turian Kandros states he is named after an ancestor who captured a dreadnought in the Krogan rebellions, and he was expected to live up to the name. After beginning boot camp at the traditional age of 15, Kandros rose through the ranks and was assigned to Sagiris 8, one of the hierarchy's counter-terrorism divisions. Persistent rumors in the Nexus claim that Kandros was sent to investigate the Andromeda initiative when the hierarchy became suspicious about its activities. Kandros refuses to comment on former operations, citing family pressures as the reason he later joined the initiative. During the early days of the Nexus's arrival, Kandros left the station to act as protection detail for a prospecting team and was captured by the Kett. He managed to lead several other captives in an escape and returned to the Nexus, eventually founding a volunteer militia to defend the station. Andromeda Initiative Director Tan. Number 8. Andromeda Initiative Director Jarun Tan is a replacement leader for those who died in the Scourge disaster. Personnel records indicate he was the Nexus's deputy director for revenue management. He was an accountant when the Arcs departed the Milky Way in 2185. However, upon arrival at the Helios cluster, the disastrous encounter with the Scourge led to substantial lost life among the senior leadership. The line of succession eventually fell to Tan as the next in line for overall director, much to the apparent consternation of certain Nexus personnel. Born on Surkesh, Tan's application to the initiative lists his previous work experience as senior consultant, advanced matrix-based accounting, with hobbies in model shipbuilding and travel. Someday. When queried if he had any prejudices that would affect his ability to serve the initiative, his answer was blank. However, careful data forensics reveal his original reply was, "Wait, you're letting Krogan come along?" Today, Director Tan has official oversight of initiative, operations and strategy, and effective supervision of Pathfinder teams. This guy is way over his head, isn't he? Nexus leadership. As the base of operations for the Andromeda Initiative, the Nexus leadership was always intended to be split between the initiative proper, station operations, and colonial administration. Jean Garson planned to retain an honorary role, electing the Asari matriarch Nuara as the initiative director. Unfortunately, both Garson and matriarch Nuara are listed as deceased, along with many of Nuara's senior staff. The current director of the initiative, Jarun Tan, was 8th in line of succession. Today, Director Tan remains officially in charge of initiative operations and Pathfinder teams. Foster Addison retains her post as Director of Colonial Affairs, managing colonist and outpost deployments. The Nexus itself is administered by Superintendent Nakmor Kesh, who also oversees construction efforts. In the wake of the Kett attacks, Turian Kandros emerged as the leader of a de facto volunteer militia that has taken over station security. Though technically a civilian, Kandros is counted amongst the Nexus leadership. Nakmor Kesh, overseer of the Nexus's initial design and construction phase in the Milky Way. Nakmor Kesh is currently superintendent of the station. She has oversight of the Nexus proper, maintaining systems, integrating any returning arcs, and continuing her construction efforts. She is also considered a senior figure in Clan Nakmor. Despite the departure of the majority of the Krogan from the Nexus, Kesh herself describes her role as Fixer-in-Chief. Kesh was born on Tachanka back in the Milky Way. She claims she was considered frail as a child, but an attentive upbringing by her grandfather, Nakmor Drak, allowed her to flourish. Unlike many of her kind, a younger Kesh made ample time to read, sparking her interest early in engineering and civil construction. Records from the Nexus Uprising show Kesh played a key role in keeping the station operational during the crisis. Her strong management and knowledge of the station makes her an irreplaceable member of the Nexus leadership. Though minutes of official meetings suggest she and Director Jarun Tan are often at odds, Kesh's presence ensures that the Krogan still have a powerful voice on the Nexus. That's good to know. Foster Addison. Previous to the initiative, Foster Addison was the Chief Operations Officer for a provincial capital. She stated in her screening interviews that she preferred the position because it was the highest non-elected municipal office. It carried responsibility without requiring a public face. Foster was asked to head colonial affairs during initiative training. She accepted after being assured that it was temporary. After arrival, Outpost would appoint a council, and she could be obscured on a new world. In the meantime, she would remain a senior advisor to G and Garson. Unfortunately, Garson died in the Nexus's initial Scourge impact, to be replaced by Director Tan. During the rebuilding, Colonial Director Addison had no colonial affairs to direct. That limited the influence she wielded and increased the scrutiny demanded. She has expressed frustration at the open-ended nature of her position and the ongoing need for statements about the status or lack of outposts. Though she remains eminently capable, it appears to be exactly the job she didn't want. The Pathfinders. Pathfinder implants. The first Pathfinder neural implant were created by Dr. Ellen Ryder, a pioneer in human biotic implant design. While biotic implants bolster and focus electronic signals along the nervous system, Pathfinder implants go a step further by connecting to not only the nervous system, but circulation, endocrine function, and exteroceptive senses. Synced with an artificial intelligence, the implants reveal their full potential. The implant is a two-way connection, giving me full insight into my host's physical and mental state, while allowing me to generate and alter electrical signals along my host's neural pathways that the body processes as its own. In a crisis, it can adjust a Pathfinder's balance, improve reaction time or muscle memory, or bolster biotic abilities. Quantum computing allows me to implement changes faster than synapses can fire. The main challenge for the Pathfinder implant was miniaturizing a QEC device enough to fit a neural implant. This connection keeps me in constant sync with my host. Arc species. We've got humans. Early spaceflight. The human philosopher Plato once said, "Astronomy compels the soul to look upward, and leads us from this world to another." For much of its recorded history, humanity has indeed looked up to the sky and dreamed of venturing to the stars. However, after the historic NASA Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969, not 1970, but year before, yeah, that was, if you don't know what I was singing, then it was ridiculously obscure. But if you do know what it is, mad props. Because we went to the moon in 1969. Not 1968, but the year later. The drive for crewed space exploration slowed as government funding dried up. The move towards cheaper unmanned probes and orbital stations gained traction instead, as one of the central obstacles was the expense of creating first-stage booster rockets that would be lost after each flight. But the lure of sending people into the cosmos never lost its draw. In the early 21st century, a private company called SpaceX pioneered efforts in sustainable space travel by developing a reusable launch system. It revolutionized the field as the first entity, government or private, to successfully launch and then safely recover an orbital booster rocket intact, allowing it to be reused in future launches. Reusable hardware placed lower-cost, sustainable space travel within reach. Galvanized by SpaceX's achievements, a renaissance in space exploration followed. Reusable launch system technology later became pivotal in establishing the European Space Agency's first permanent settlement on Mars, Lowell City, in 2103. Krogan culture was irrevocably changed by the Genophage, a society built on clan pride, conquest, and enduring any challenge could not survive the prospect of a quiet extinction. In the Milky Way, the Krogan are a scattered and fatalistic people, believing the genophage will never be cured, that many subscribe to the idea of kill, pillage, and be selfish, for tomorrow we die. Yeah, I remember that. Krogan who don't become wandering mercenaries often live with clans with histories that stretch back thousands of years. Others organize under the banner of a single warlord or into a krant of like-minded warriors. The history and traditions of a Krogan clan are maintained by respected shamans who prove their worth through grueling and secretive initiations. Female Krogan capable of producing offspring are valuable commodities. Most females live in separate camps, where they raise children until they are old enough to face Tuchanka's dangers. Biology. Krogan are exceptionally hardy, having evolved in a crucible of lethal conditions and monstrous predators. 240-degree vision, normally a feature of prey animals, gives Krogan a broad awareness of their environment and approaching enemies. Their tough hides can withstand stabbings and gunfire, and multiple redundant organs allow them to survive internal injuries. An electroconductive secondary circulatory system, rather than a central nervous system, makes Krogan almost impossible to paralyze, while the hump on their backs stores valuable water and fats. The extremely high birth rate of Krogan, a response to Tuchanka's harsh environment, once saw them overrun gentler worlds within a few decades. the genophage has reduced live births to a relative handful. Krogan physiology is also highly resistant to radioactive or toxic environments. This allows them to live comfortably on planets hostile to other life. Initiative scientists have studied Krogan cellular generation while developing first-in colonist radiation treatments. History. A degree in Krogan history was apparently once a joke in academic circles, but excavations on Tuchanka show that the ancient Krogan had a thriving and impressive civilization. Unfortunately, their technological advances ran afoul of Krogan aggressive instincts. Once the Krogan entered the atomic age, they didn't hesitate to deploy nuclear weapons on Tuchanka, devastating the surface and reducing their people to scattered warring bands. The Salarian technologically and culturally uplifted the Krogan in return for their service against the Rachni, who were terrorizing Citadel space. Capable of surviving the harsh environments the Rachni preferred, Krogan units drove the Rachni to extinction and were hailed as heroes. They were granted gentler worlds to colonize, but the rapid breeding meant the Krogan soon overran them and threatened neighboring species. The resulting Krogan rebellions lasted almost a century, until the Turians deployed the genophage bioweapon. Unable to breed reinforcements, the Krogan people fell into decline. The Krogan homeworld Tuchanka is one of the harshest in the Milky Way, honing the Krogan into physically powerful, aggressive, and adaptable species. Once considered heroes after the Rachni Wars, Krogan expansion made them a threat to the galaxy until the Turians and Salarians used the controversial genophage to quell their numbers. Several authorities questioned including the Krogan in the Andromeda Initiative given their history. Invitations were extended to several clans, particularly those who did not take part in the Krogan rebellions, and their resistance eventually proved invaluable in building the Nexus. Colonist interviews shows that many Krogan see the initiative as a chance to reinvent their people. The Krogan are considered a dying species in the Milky Way, as the genophage means only 1 in 1,000 Krogan pregnancies succeeds. In recent years, Krogan have shown signs of adapting to the genophage, as they have to many other threats. What I love about the Mass Effect lore is there are so many really interesting things about each of the races, but there's a reason for all of those interesting things. There's like logical, scientific reasons. For example, the genophage, the Krogan are the race of the genophage. Why do they have the genophage? Well, because, they overpopulate. Why do they overpopulate? Because in order for them to have evolved in their home world of Tuchanka, which is a very harsh planet means that the death rate is very high, which means their birth rate had to be high to compensate in order to survive in such a planet. And because of their, resistance to that, the Salarians thought, hey, they can take care of these Rachni because they live in these harsher environments, but we have to uplift the Krogan. And because the Krogan, lived in such a harsh environment, and they were, uplifted too early, and they were giving nukes before they were ready, they destroyed their homeworld, but they were awarded calmer homeworlds, but because those homeworlds weren't harsh enough, they overpopulated, and then they started, trying to create their own empire. A lot of it would have been, fine, not fine, but for me, I would have just stuck with, oh yeah, these Krogan, they have the genophage because their birth, because they have a high birth rate, but it would have been a little bit more challenging for me to come up with the why in that. Why scientifically did that happen, leading back to their history. This is why history is relevant. History is relevant. This is coming from someone who, for him, history actually was one of my least favorite subjects, but I understand that it's very relevant. Salarians. The fortunes of Salarian political dynasties dominate their early history. Most students require VI assistance to trace the complex interplay of trade wars, intrigue, assassinations, joint scientific discoveries, and treaties that created the cultural political climate. Some of the most famous, such as the 10 Traders' War, have been immortalized in long-running extranet dramas. The Salarians were the second species to discover the Citadel space station that serves as the political heart of the Milky Way, making first contact with the Asari and becoming founding members of the Citadel Council. Their intelligence gathering proved vital during the Krogan rebellions and later led to the creation of the genophage bioweapon intended as a deterrent. Its deployment by the Turians remains controversial to this day. The Salarian STG Special Tasks Group has played a secretive but vital role in galactic history, specializing in information gathering and covert missions. It is believed that STG operators have ended several wars before they began, which is quite an impressive thing. The Salarians are a warm-blooded amphibious species from the Milky Way planet of Surkesh. Naturally, fast metabolism means that Salarians live intense but short lives of less than 40 years. Their quick intellect and photographic memory make them gifted scientists and engineers, and the Salarian Union is renowned for its technological advances as well as its secrecy and intelligence gathering. Tension between Salarians and the Krogan has lingered for centuries. Salarian scientists were responsible for creating the genophage that devastated the Krogan population and ended the Krogan rebellions. Almost 90% of the Salarian species is male. Political power is centered in Codexes, rare Salarian females who negotiate the fertilization of eggs, and the strategic alliances that result. Many Salarian females chosen to continue to join the Andromeda Initiative as civilians, a significant break in Salarian tradition. Salarian culture. In the Milky Way, the Salarian Union is dominated by the rare Salarian females known as Dalatraces, who negotiate the complex web of Salarian politics on behalf of the region they govern. Salarians belong to vast clans whose interrelation and current political status must be painstakingly tracked. Clans are divided into concentric circles of relatives. Those closest are in the first circle, which may be up to 100 members, and circles increase exponentially outward. This is considered confusing by other organic species, though it is mathematically straightforward. Salarians do not have a concept of romantic love. The fertilization of eggs is a political act, since the lineage of any resulting females has a strong impact on society, and only occurs after months or even years of negotiations. Multiple Salarian females opted to join the Andromeda's initiative as civilians. Renegotiation of a dozen political dynasties in the Salarian Union was ongoing when departed. Biology. Salarians are renowned for their high-speed metabolism, allowing them to function on 1 hour of sleep a day, which, is actually a good thing considering their short lifespans. Compared to most species, Salarians think and act quickly, processing both emotional and biochemical changes at a rapid pace. A Salarian workday traditionally accommodates 5 or 6 small, high-protein meals to match. However, Salarians also have a comparatively short lifespan of roughly 40 years. Salarians are haplodiploid egg-laying amphibians. Unfertilized egg hatch males, fertilized eggs hatch females. A Salarian female typically lays a clutch of dozens of eggs once a year in environmentally controlled hatching pools. Once hatched, young Salarians imprint on the parents, ensuring dynastic loyalty through generations. Their large families were a contributing factor to the Salarian developing photographic memories, enabling them to recognize hundreds of relatives. Salarians rarely forget a fact, face, or grudge. A popular saying suggests making a Salarian enemy in the morning makes 1,000 by evening. See, they even have an explanation of their photogenic memory, because they have to remember hundreds of the relatives. Turians. Culture and society. Turian culture is founded on public service and personal accountability. The Turian military is the center of their society, functioning as a public works organization as well as armed defense force. Citizenship is conferred once Turians have completed boot camp, begun on their 15th birthday, and promotion through the 27 citizenship tiers is judged on individual merit. At the top are the Primarchs, who lead colonization clusters. Their inclination to military service and social trends mean few Turians pursue entrepreneurial careers, making the Turian economy more vulnerable than most. The support of clients like the Volus makes up for this deficiency. Turians in the Andromeda Initiative operate outside a comfortable hierarchy. Interviews with prospective Turian colonists indicate some are seeking this very freedom to forge their own destiny. Other colonists believe Turian selflessness and civic structure will be vital to the initiative's success. Renowned as men of action, the Turians have a militaristic culture revolving around public service. Turians earned their place in galactic society after their actions in ending the Krogan rebellions. They subsequently served as a peacekeeping arm of the Citadel Council and commanded the largest fleet in the Milky Way. Turian society once relied on client species like the Volus to build their economy and trade. In the Andromeda Initiative, the military training all Turians undergoes allows them to fill many vital civic and security roles, but many have also enrolled for entrepreneurial or diplomatic training to be better-rounded colonists. Galactic events and their military doctrine have left lingering resentments between Turians and some species. The Turians were responsible for deploying the genophage against the Krogan, and misunderstandings with humans led to the First Contact War, though humans and Turians have since become cordial, if not close allies. Biology. Turians evolved on Palaven, a Milky Way world with a weak magnetic field that leaves it vulnerable to solar radiation. Most life on Palaven has a protective metal-rich exoskeleton as a natural defense. The thick plate-like skin of a Turian protects her against some long-term radiation, but does not defend against projectiles or energy weapons. Unlike most space sapient species in the Milky Way, Turians are a dextroprotein species, meaning that food for levoprotein species like Asari or humans can cause dangerous allergic reactions and vice versa. The only other known sapient dextrose species is the Quarians, as well as Palavenflora. Turian scientists with the Andromeda Initiative paid the Quarian migrant fleet handsomely for plants and fungi that were specifically developed to thrive in hydroponic conditions. History. Before joining the Citadel Council that governs much of the Milky Way, the Turian hierarchy was a formidable power, with numerous client species supporting its powerful military. Rapid expansion from Palaven later led to problems with outlying colonies, when isolation and xenophobia led to infighting in what was termed the Unification War. The Turians made first contact with the Citadel Council around 700 CE, when the Krogan rebellions were raging. When the Krogan devastated Turian colonies, the Turians responded by unleashing the Salarian-developed genophage against the Krogan. 200 years later, the Turians were invited to join the Citadel Council. In 2157, human explorers attempting to activate a mass relay were attacked by Turian forces, as unauthorized relay activation was strictly illegal. The resulting conflict, the First Contact War, saw the human colony of Shanxi occupied by the Turians before the Citadel Council negotiated a peace. Andromeda species. The Kett. Fiends are monstrous beasts with a heavily armored carapace. Unlike the stealthier wraiths, fiends are besieging units and that attack head-on, scattering enemy forces and destroying entrenched enemy positions. They attack non-Kett without appearing to need orders. Some scientists believe fiends respond aggressively to an absence of Kett pheromones or similar cues. A fiend's carapace is permeated by dense cartilage that makes it both strong and flexible, and acts as a shock absorber for incoming fire. Preliminary study of their nervous system suggests that nerve transmission is dampened above a certain pain threshold, allowing a fiend to detect injury but not be slowed by it. Reports of fiend encounters are often accompanied by casualty lists, and the militia advises that only a well-armed and organized team should handle a fiend at full rampage. According to Nexus officials, the aliens encountered on Habitat 7 are known as the Kett, a species that has proven hostile in every reported encounter. Little is known about them or their motives. The Kett possesses technology and weapons at least on par with the Initiatives, and have been responsible for the death or capture of many Initiative personnel. The only commonality is that the Kett have a clear interest in the strange structures and technology seen on Habitat 7, and, as we know now, on several worlds in the Helios cluster. Scouts and prospecting teams trying to investigate this technology are invariably attacked by the Kett, who take any scans or research materials by force. Why the Kett have such an interest in this technology is unknown, but the Nexus has issued warning bulletins to all off-station teams to avoid these sites for their own safety. The Anointed. The Kett soldiers known as Anointed appear to be of similar caste to the Chosen. Infantry equipped with light armor, Anointed, however, wield heavy plasma cannons, making them a rallying point for the other Kett forces, and shield themselves with kinetic barriers against flashback. A barrage from an Anointed's plas cannon can shred through enemy barriers and severely damage ground vehicles. Communication intercepts suggested that Anointed assist in coordinating Chosen squads and act into an NCO role. It is unclear if the term Anointed refers to a senior rank among the Chosen, or if Anointed are part of a separate division within the Kett infantry. Chosen are the frontline soldiers of the Kett, encountered on multiple worlds as support for other Kett combatants. They are equipped with assault rifles that fire plasma-surrounded projectiles, and light armor that allows them to move and deploy rapidly. Though their biology is still under investigation, they are capable of surviving in hazardous environments without protective gear. While quick to defer to more senior individuals, Chosen appear to be disciplined and loyal soldiers, undeterred by even biotic attacks or heavy ordnance. They present a continuing risk to unarmed outposts. The name Chosen was intercepted and tentatively translated from Kett communications. If accurate, its significance is unclear, since these are clearly the Kett's baseline infantry. Wraith. Nicknamed by Initiative scouts unlucky enough to encounter them, Wraiths are war beasts capable of adjusting their carapace pigmentation to blend into their surroundings. This ability lets them stalk an enemy over distances unseen or cause sudden disorder in enemy ranks, flushing targets to be picked off by other Kett forces. When attacking, Wraiths leap and strike with impressive jaw strength that can puncture ceramic armor. Wraiths present an interesting study to Nexus scientists. initially believed to originate from the same homeworld as the Kett, since they have similar physical characteristics. Wraiths show clear genetic similarity with other feral creatures sighted across the Helios cluster. Andromeda Wildlife Overview. The nature of life in the Andromeda Galaxy was debated at length by Milky Way scholars. Many Milky Way species show convergent evolution, upright bipeds of a certain height and atmospheric tolerances, leading some to theorize this pattern might give some evolutionary advantage, despite counter-arguments by Hanar scientists. Interestingly, the Kett and Angara continue to fit this pattern. The wildlife and flora encountered in the Helios cluster have adapted to the presence of the scourge, evolving epidermal layers or carapaces that can cope with ambient radiation, or in the case of some plants, successfully feeding off it. Many use bioluminescence to attract prey or as a threat or mating display. Concerns were raised around the ability of Milky Way species to consume proteins from Andromeda, so seed banks formed a significant part of the Ark's cargo. We now know it's safe to consume food or grown or hunted here, though enzyme supplements are recommended and have become a social norm at mealtimes. The Remnant. Interfacing. Remnant technology requires a careful reactivation dubbed interfacing, a process Alec Ryder and I first developed on Habitat 7 using glyphs, dense data, packets of Remnant code, a working understanding of their language, and the interface capabilities of a Pathfinder implant. I can help you trigger control Remnant technology from appropriate locations. Interfacing is the only way to activate certain Remnant technologies, such as monoliths. Scans and surface damage suggest that the Kett have repeatedly attempted to activate these sites by other, increasingly desperate methods without success. It is not clear whether Remnant technology is designed to be activated by an AI. There is no evidence of artificial intelligence in the Remnant structures as investigated thus far, and Remnant bots have only rudimentary programming. However, the glyphs contain recognition keys analogous to an electroencephalogram, implying that the system is designed to handle a form of neural input. An artificial creation must have a creator, but there is scant evidence of whomever created the Remnant. I have consulted the Nexus scientist, scans obtained by PB, on the condition that I not rearrange her data, and records of your own investigation, but my conclusions remain speculation. We can be certain that the Remnant builders are several orders of sophistication above the Initiative's technology. Interlinked cluster-wide planetary engineering is beyond the logistics or budget of any known species. The energy requirements alone suggest a Type 1 civilization on the Kardashev scale. On a cultural level, the builders must have been intelligent and capable of large-scale cooperation. The proportion of the vaults and devices found suggests a species with similar physical traits of humans, but with no genetic evidence left behind. Their appearance, along with their motivations, remain a mystery. Breacher. Created by assemblers, these breachers are levitating drones that move in rapid aggressive bursts using a powerful microthruster. PB claims to have named them breachers after mistaking one for an observer, and quickly realizing the new example broke the rules. Analysis of breacher debris shows that their systems are fundamentally unstable. Their power cores are improperly shielded and many of their inner workings are exposed. This suggests that they are created for short-term deployment to handle intruders who stray into Remnant territory, and in turn offer some insight into the Remnant builders' military doctrine. Combined with single-minded programming that focuses on hostiles, the volatile construction of breachers makes them extremely dangerous. If provoked, the breacher will launch itself at an opponent and attempt to latch onto it, using exposed gears to grind through hard suits and cause severe damage. When damaged beyond repair, a breacher may trigger its power core to overload and self-destruct. Decryption. Most Remnant technology is inert or in standby mode, but some is secured with a decryption grid. Unlocking it requires scanning the correct Remnant glyphs and arranging them in a specific order. The glyphs cannot repeat on any straight line or within a square block of 4. PB speculates that this could be a safety measure. Even if a method was devised to brute force hack an interface, it would not work with the decryption grid. Given the devastating consequences when Remnant technology is improperly activated, her analysis seems sound. The arrangement of the glyphs appear to complete either a password or a code phrase within the grid as a whole. From the little I understand of the Remnant language, they appear to form an almost palindromic satyr square sentence, but the first meaning would require a detailed explanation from the grid's designer. Remnant Assembler. Remnant assemblers were nicknamed by their ability to create smaller units known as breachers. Each assembler contains a reservoir of an unknown ferrofluid, similar to Omnigel, which can be used to 3D print breachers on the spot with alarming speed. Tactically, assemblers focus on manufacturing reinforcements, moving to safe distance during combat. If approached while in hostile mode, the assembler can jettison the partially completed power core of a breacher, which acts like an explosive grenade, causing massive damage to enemies and allowing the assembler to withdraw. Upon creating a breacher, the assembler transfers a full copy of its stored recent memory and battlefield. Interesting. The Remnant. The Remnant is the umbrella term coined for technology, structures, and autonomous bots that have been sighted around the Helios cluster. Seemingly abandoned by whoever created it, this Remnant technology is extremely advanced, but most of it is in a standby state. On Habitat 7, Alec Ryder discovered that reactivating this technology requires scanning glyphs, data packets written in Remnant coding technology, or in Remnant coding language, and my assistance with interfacing with particular consoles. This is complicated by Remnant bots that still guard and maintain many of these installations. Remnant bots do not appear to be sentient, but they are programmed to consider any interface with their technology as a hostile act and attack single-mindedly. The Observer. Observers, mid to long-range Remnant drones, can be seen at most Remnant sites. They are equipped with Element Zero's cores that allow them to levitate and can normally be seen scanning or conducting maintenance at these sites. While they are the least robust of the Remnant bots, observers are still a threat to unprepared explorers if provoked. Examination of destroyed Remnant observers shows they have multiple sensor vectors, visual, oral, electromagnetic, and others as of yet undefined, and a comprehensive toolkit of equipment for observation and maintenance, including an ultraviolet beam laser. Serving partially as its primary weapon, the frequencies of an observer's laser appears to react with Remnant structures to induce a repair cycle. Observers are also capable of bringing other Remnants online, likely as part of their maintenance duties. When asked, PV explains the name Observers. With everywhere you go, they seem to be looking at you. Planets and locations. The Scourge. The Scourge is the colloquial term for a huge and extremely dangerous interstellar phenomenon sighted across the Helios cluster. It appears to be a cloud spreading in tendrils that affect planets and surrounding space, destroying starships and attempts to pass through or near it. Early study of the Scourge has been difficult, and it does not match any previously known stellar body, leading to many wild theories about its nature. Given the problems in observation and the Scourge's unaccounted effects on gravity, some have even suggested it is a dark energy phenomenon in the literal sense, meaning a form of energy that has no electromagnetic interaction and thus cannot be detected, hence dark, yet has strong negative pressure, causing expansive effects on a cosmic scale. Though the Scourge's characteristics don't match our current understanding of dark energy, these theories persist while future observations are taken. No long-range data showed any signs of the Scourge before departure of the Helios cluster. Nexus scientists suggest it must have appeared in the intervening centuries while the arcs traveled to Andromeda. One of the Scourge's most interesting characteristics is that it appears artificial. Its origin point is yet to be determined, but the pattern of the tendrils and the composition of the cloud could not have been caused by any celestial event known as astrophysics. Investigations are ongoing, though slowly, by the deadly conditions created by the Scourge. Eos, designated Habitat 1, was the earliest golden world, identified for outpost placement. Named for the Greek goddess of dawn by G.N. Garson personally, Eos embodied the hope of the Andromeda Initiative for a new start. On arrival, the Nexus discovered that a world projected to be arid but comfortably habitable was now ravaged by radioactive fallout from the Scourge. The planet's atmosphere is racked by storms that have spread the radiation across continents, periodic 130 kilometers per hour winds strip equipment and damage shuttles. Reports from the Nexus include a sanitized account of 2 attempts to colonize the planet, both of which ended in failure and an acceptable loss of life. There is also significant Kett presence on Eos, apparently investigating mysterious signals on the surface. Eos is now off limits to unauthorized Nexus personnel, as the Nexus leadership believe it is no longer viable. Activating the vault discovered below Eos' surface has had a dramatic and immediate effect. Radioactive particles are being stripped from the atmosphere by unknown means, and the resulting temperature changes are calming Eos' high winds. The planet's moisture levels are already showing improvement. Pandromos, the first Pathfinder-established outpost, has been founded in Fair Winds Basin, with Mayor August Bradley in charge. The Nexus is broadcasting footage of departing colonists and new colony conditions on Eos across all communication channels. Technology. I think we're good with that. Research and development. Materials. Crafting new weapons, armor, and equipment requires a variety of materials. Although there are strange new isotopes and ores in Andromeda, our scientists have identified familiar elements. Heavy metals such as iron, cadmium, and nickel are used in construction and heavy manufacturing. Their density makes them useful for armor components and ammunition blocks. Many light metals, including silicon, beryllium, magnesium, and aluminum, are resistant to corrosion and invaluable to computer components, heat sinks, and high-conductive electric wiring, while lithium has both engineering and medical applications. Titanium, a transition metal, is eagerly sought after for starship construction. Vanadium improves steel quality and is used by aerospace industry. Noble metals, including platinum, copper, and iridium, are rare and valuable in the Milky Way. They are often used in high-quality electronics or machine parts that require high precision. Minerals like graphite, used to manufacture carbon nanotubes and carbon fiber, and fluorite for high-precision scientific lenses, are more common but equally useful. The initiative pays well for more hazardous materials. Uranium is used in weaponry and nuclear-powered facilities, while Element Zero has applications in multiple fields. Heavy industry starship engines, jump jet components, or even as an ingredient in many advanced medicines, to name but a few. Weapon and armor mods. Andromeda Initiative equipment is designed to be modular and adaptable to any situation. Weapons and armor in particular are built with the understanding that they will be customized multiple times in the field over their operational lifetime. Gun modifications can be purchased from appropriate locations or recovered in the field. Each weapon's targeting computer also contains an adaptive integration VI that analyzes a mod on installation, adjusts the weapon's balance, heat sink requirements, and ammunition block accordingly, and sends a list of any additional components to the user's OmniTool for manufacturing. The process typically takes only a few minutes. The Research Center. A research center is a research and development platform normally designed to outpost and some select initiative starships. Advanced manufacturing capability, small-scale manufacture, and information processing allows the Research Center to develop new technology and build it almost on the spot. They are also used to build powerful augmentations that enhance the capability of equipment. Given the initiative's current limitations, bandwidth and resource allocation to the Research Center is carefully monitored. The Research Center is carefully monitored. The Nexus underlines the importance of new discoveries by rewarding scans and information gathered via a point system, commonly referred to as research data points. These can be used to access time at research centers to discover or create new blueprints. Yup. Settling Helios. Technology. Charting Andromeda. Charting the Andromeda galaxy for habitable planets presents a unique challenge. Observation is limited by light and the given... I think I've already done this one. Communications and QEC. Communications have always been a concern for interstellar colonists. Trade, defense, and political representation depend on reliable lines of communication. The most sophisticated method is quantum entanglement communication, QEC. This utilizes a pair of particles that are linked on a quantum level. Any effect on one particle is mirrored instantaneously by the other, regardless of the distance between. Pathfinder implants used miniaturized QECs to remain in contact with their AI partners. However, manufacturing these particle pairs is a delicate and difficult process, especially with resources limited to Helios. Long term, the Andromeda Initiative plans to establish a comm relay network, transmitting data between buoys linked by mass-free corridors of space. The Scourge has hampered these efforts. In the meantime, initiative starships act like maritime mail packets, carrying secure data packages that transmit to improved colony receivers once they're in range. The transmissions are limited by the ship's data storage and the capability of receivers, but improvements are ongoing. Forward stations. Automated forward stations are part of the initiative wave of exploration or colonist deployment. They contain valuable resource caches for explorers to resupply, repair stations for vehicles, and ground-penetrating sensors to identify mineral deposits. Their presence improves the chance of a planet being considered viable. When a planet is seriously considered for settlement or a survey is ongoing, forward stations are seeded into orbit via automated barges. Once summoned to a designated zone, the forward stations descend and anchor themselves to the ground, becoming viable landmarks. Most scout rovers have forward station connectivity, allowing them to be summoned to the stations. Current resource constraints mean that in theory only Pathfinders have official sanction to call down forward stations. In reality, reports show that enterprising colonists or unscrupulous scavengers have also been known to hack the signals to raid the station for supplies. Without a steady supply of minerals and metallic ores, the initiatives and engineering capabilities grind to a halt. With plans so far off schedule, it's even more important to gather resources wherever possible. On the ground, Pathfinder scanners and on-the-ground penetrating radar forward stations assist in locating resources for immediate harvest or for colonists beginning their own mining operations. Oops. In space, Initiative starships can pinpoint resources from orbit. Each ship is equipped with probes that contain both sensor, beacon, and robotic drones that can harvest at least a percentage of any deposits quickly. The Nexus has relied on asteroid mining for the raw materials to support the construction efforts, which yields heavy metals and platinum. The Scourge is a rich source of element 0, but the hazardous conditions destroy most robotic telepresence, making it an inexpensive pursuit. Most prospectors look on nearby plants for jettisoned rock and debris from the Scourge, which often contains ESO deposits. Terraforming. Terraforming is the science of making planets more viable for life. Soft terraforming involves introduction of bacteria or ocean algae to bind toxic gases or adjust a hostile ecology. Hard terraforming is often conducted on arid planets with a thin atmosphere, using the impact of a comet or asteroid to warm the planet before introducing microbial life. This process can take centuries. Terraforming even a barren planet often involves significant financial and ethical hurdles. The Andromeda Initiative has the capability for terraforming, if necessary, but is limited by the time frames involved. The Golden Worlds surveyed from the Milky Way were intended to support quick colonist deployment, with second-tier candidates identified for potential terraforming later. If the Remnant Vault on Eos is intended for terraforming, as evidence shows, its function is unprecedented. The ability to affect change on a global scale in such a short time defies our understanding of planetary science. Tech and biotics. Also known as ESO, element 0, the rare material known as element 0 generates a field when subjected to an electrical current which transfers or lowers. I think I already read this one. Artificial intelligence. While a virtual intelligence is little more than a sophisticated interactive operating system, an artificial intelligence is a self-aware computing system capable of learning and independent decision-making. Creating an AI requires adaptive code and long education and a specialized quantum computer known as a blue box. In the Milky Way, artificial intelligence is considered a threat to galactic civilization. The Geth, synthetic life forms who turn on their quarrying creators, are often used as an example of the destructive capability of rogue AI, and those who attempt to create AI without strict Citadel Council oversight are subject to sanctions or even arrest. Alec Ryder's research papers claim that experimental separation is the root of conflict between organic and synthetic life, that an AI sharing the experience of its creator would have no desire to rebel. My connection to your Pathfinder implant and psychology and physiology makes me the first iteration of this new approach to AI. That is really interesting. Huh. When they're connected, they share enough with the human so that they wouldn't want to rebel. That is really interesting. And last but not least, ships and vehicles. Ark Parchero is the Andromeda Initiative's designated vessel for transporting Salarian colonists to the new galaxy. Mirroring the design of its human counterpart, Hyperion Ark Parchero can accommodate 20,000 passengers and crew in cryogenic stasis. Parchero's development was plagued by early days and disagreements between its senior crew and the Initiative's design team. The Salarian penchant for constantly pushing the boundaries of technology was often at odds with the realities of budget and time constraints. At one point, it was calculated that if every vital and necessary important suggested by the Salarian contingent was incorporated into Parchero's design, its launch would have been delayed until 2204 at the soonest. After considerable negotiation and debate, a compromise was reached by Ark Parchero departed the Milky Way in 2185 in the initial wave of settlers under the command of Captain Humont Haysher. The ND-1 Nomad. Seeking a suitable scout rover, the Andromeda Initiative purchased a promising but rejected design from the System Alliance military. The issue quickly became apparent on rough terrain, without the bracing of heavy armor. the chassis has proven to twist. The initiative had already developed lightweight but strong memory alloys to solve this problem. The resulting ND-1 Nomad exchanges heavy armaments for superior agility. The rover has a tripartite element 0 to core, which allows fine control over acceleration and a more modest helium-3 fuel cost for its microthrusters. Its lighter weight enables both 6-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive, and four-wheel steering for hazardous surfaces. Fitting the initiative's adaptive policy, the Nomad can be customized with appropriate camouflage or initiative colors. When necessary during long-haul exploration, the rover contains an emergency shelter. It can produce potable water from its hydrogen-oxygen fuel cells, though scientists recommend adding a flavor pack to it first. The Tempest. The Tempest is a survey ship designed for long-range, long-term exploration under a Pathfinder's command. Its lightweight and efficient design allows it to operate with a small crew and minimal resources. Built by the Andromeda Initiative, the Tempest makes use of several once proprietary technologies, including an IES stealth system originally developed by the Systems Alliance. Many of these systems were permitted on the condition that the Tempest only operate in the Andromeda Galaxy. The Tempest engine is a variation on the ARC's ODSY drives that allow long-term operation, capturing a percentage of the static buildup in capacitors. The recycled electrical charge powers several of the Tempest onboard systems. As a Pathfinder vessel, the Tempest has research and development facilities, laboratories, and a well-appointed meeting space to accommodate dignitaries anticipating any potential first contact scenarios. Arc Lucinia. Constructed in orbit around Pierres in the Asari home system Parnitha, Arc Lucinia is named after a kingdom of wealth and learning in Asari mythology. She is built to the same specifications as her sister Arc Hyperion, with internal modifications to accommodate Asari social preferences and captained by Alonis Atandra. The Andromeda Initiative was initially rejected as a human-driven boondoggle by many Asari inventors, and the construction of the Lucinia was met with ridicule. However, the efforts drew the attention of several matriarchs who had assisted in previous attempts to send crewed missions to Andromeda, and their impassioned extranet addresses helped turn the tide of public opinion. At her departure ceremony, Arc Lucinia was officially blessed by the Atamna Politia, an organization of Sayarist high priestesses from across the Asari republics. Cool. Arc Lucinia traveled to the Initiative rendezvous point in 2184 and left the Milky Way as part of the initial departure in 2185. Tempest technology. The Tempest required a number of experimental technologies to accommodate the unique requirements of a Pathfinder team. Its planetary surface imaging, for example, uses photosensitive and radar-lidar emitting microsatellites that coordinate with the Tempest router back to the SAM node. It then conducts simulated scientific and probability studies on the data before presenting the Pathfinder with a summarized analysis, typically in 0.5 seconds. The Tempest computer network presented interesting challenges, as most Milky Way computer systems have anti-AI safeguards built in. The Tempest network had to be designed from scratch to accommodate my interaction with the ship's systems. Firmware bridges inspired by studies into Geth networking technology allow me to temporarily interact with and augment sensors, communications, and the ship's navigation array. Given the desire to reduce mass without sacrificing safety, the electrical charge from the Tempest's capacitors is used to keep the ship stable, via prototype piezoelectric vibration reduction, PVR technology. When the ship's superstructure is bent by vibrations, such as automatic atmosphere reentry or complex flight maneuvers, piezoelectric elements receive an electrical charge that bends bulkheads in the opposing direction, reducing vibrations and smoothing the ship's flight path. Research capabilities. Pathfinders are often the first to encounter new potential threats or valuable technology. The Tempest is therefore equipped for sophisticated research and development in the field to support as fast turnaround of any necessary upgrades or analysis. Its research center syncs with the tech lab systems, giving insight into the capabilities of new materials and their potential applications. My connection to Arc Hyperion and the Nexus allows me to transfer data and latest discoveries from the scientists stationed there. Quantum computing enables multiple complex simulations to be run simultaneously, and new components or configurations can be tested virtually before they are built. Stealth system. In 2183, the Systems Alliance and the Turian hierarchy co-developed the IES, Internal Emission Sink stealth system for small military frigates. It's unknown how the Initiative acquired this system for its survey ships, as IES stealth technology is classified. Despite valid security certificates, no record of negotiations exists in the Nexus legal archives. An IES stealth system is designed to capture the heat and radiation emitted by all-star ships in refrigerated storage sinks, effectively removing the ship from sensors. Initiative starship systems are streamlined to emit less electromagnetic and particle radiation and to lower heat production. This reduces the amount of emissions to be stored. Additionally, breakthroughs in cryogenic research allow the storage sinks to be more effectively refrigerated, allowing longer stealth time before the sinks must be vented for safety. The Tempest can remain stationary in stealth for several hours or travel at FTL in silent running for shorter period. Arc Nantanus. Arc Nantanus was constructed in orbit around Aventen, a once lucrative mining planet in the Turian home system Trebia. The Ark was named after legendary spacefarer Palex Nantanus, who is believed to be the first Turian to travel through a mass relay. The Nantanus is built to similar specification as the Asahari and human Arks, but with minor changes to accommodate her dextro amino acid-based passengers. Nantanus is captained by the renowned Dea Praeton of the 6th Fleet. Like most economical ventures, Turian investors were turned onto the Andromeda Initiative by their clients, the Volus. The Turian hierarchy was intentionally kept in the dark to keep the initiative a private civilian project. Arc Nantanus traveled to the Initiative rendezvous point in 2184 and left the Milky Way as part of the initial departure wave in 2185. Tempest Laboratories. The Tempest is equipped for long-range survey and scientific studies which are carried out at the ship's two main labs. The Biolab is equipped to hydroponically grow both Milky Way and Andromeda plant life for research or consumption. The plants also clean the ship's air and generate a modest amount of oxygen. Sealed observation chambers are set up to study small fauna. Sequence genetic material or simulate bacterial growth in carefully controlled conditions. All biomatter entering or leaving the lab is subjected to additional quarantine measures. The Tech Lab is used for engineering and technological studies, spectral analysis using laser apparatus, and for analyzing the capabilities of discovered technology. New minerals or metals can be subject to additional resistance testing before being used in the Tempest Research Center. Because of the potential volatility of new materials, the Tech Lab is equipped with heavy radiation shielding and can be sealed off in an emergency. And we already know about Arc Hyperion. Ooh, okay, that's it, guys. Ooh, that's a lot. That was a lot of codexes. But we got through all of them. So if you guys sat through the whole thing, pat yourself on the back. I hope that you found some really interesting things that you didn't know before. I guess we'll move on to the next video. Yeah, we'll move on to the next video. So thank you again for watching, and until next time, love yourselves and love each other.